Imagine sitting in your own backyard, enjoying the warmth of the sun, when suddenly police cars pull up, sirens blaring, and officers rush in as though you've done something wrong. Now imagine that this happens not because you broke the law, but because someone simply assumed you didn't belong where you were. That's exactly what happened to Chief Mariah Bennett, a woman whose life story proves the power of patience, dignity, and resilience in the face of prejudice. Mariah had spent years climbing the ladder in law enforcement. From a young officer patrolling neighborhoods, to detectives solving violent crimes, to eventually earning the badge of Chief of Police, the highest-ranking position in her city, her career was proof of her discipline and determination. But beyond the uniform, Mariah was also a daughter, a mother, a neighbor, and a woman who cherished her rare moments of peace. On one warm Saturday afternoon, she decided to enjoy that peace by lounging by the pool in her backyard, sunglasses on, book in hand, just breathing and reclaiming a little joy for herself. Her neighborhood was quiet, mostly middle-class families who waved politely at each other when picking up the mail or mowing the lawn. But Mariah had noticed, since moving in, that not everyone looked at her with kindness. Some smiled warmly. Others gave short, stiff nods. And some simply stared, as though questioning whether she belonged in the house she worked so hard to buy. Still, she refused to let those stares disturb her sense of home that day. However, one particular neighbor decided that Mariah relaxing in her own pool was suspicious. The woman, middle-aged and stern, peered through her blinds, convinced that someone was trespassing. Without walking next door, without even considering a conversation, she dialed 911 and reported a strange woman in the pool. Within minutes, multiple police cars screeched to a stop outside Mariah's gate. Officers leapt out, hands near their holsters, scanning for danger. Mariah looked up from her book, confused at first by the commotion. Then she realized what was happening. Someone had called the cops on her, in her own backyard. She stood slowly, heart heavy but face calm, and waited as the officers pushed open the gate. "Ma'am, we got a call about a possible trespasser," one of them said firmly. Mariah didn't argue. She didn't yell. She simply walked to the edge of the pool, lifted her sunglasses, and in the steady, authoritative voice she had perfected over the years, said, "Officer, I am Chief Bennett. This is my home. Who called this in?" The silence was immediate. Shock rippled across their faces. The officers who had arrived expecting confrontation now stood ashamed, realizing they had nearly treated their own chief of police like a criminal. Slowly, their postures softened. Apologies stumbled out, mixed with awkward explanations. But Mariah's eyes were on the neighbor, who now stood outside on the sidewalk, arms crossed, face pale with embarrassment. In that moment, Mariah could have exploded. She could have let years of quiet discrimination fuel her anger. She could have humiliated the neighbor in front of everyone. But instead, she chose a different path. She walked calmly to the fence, looked the woman in the eye, and said with quiet strength, "Next time you wonder if someone belongs here, try knocking on the door. I'll be happy to introduce myself." Then she turned back to the officers. "I expect a full report on this incident in the morning. Not because I want revenge, but because this is exactly the kind of call that puts innocent lives at risk. Today it was me. Tomorrow it could be anyone." The officers nodded, shame visible in their eyes. The neighbor had no words. And Mariah? She returned to her chair, sat down, and opened her book again, not because nothing had happened, but because she refused to let prejudice steal her peace. Word of the event spread quickly. Within days, the story hit local news. And soon, national headlines picked it up. Neighbor calls cops on black woman sunbathing in her own pool, unaware she's police chief. But Mariah didn't bask in the attention. Instead, she used it as a platform to talk about the dangers of racial profiling, the responsibility neighbors have to see each other as human beings, and the need for deeper understanding within communities. In interviews, she spoke directly from the heart. The problem isn't just what happened to me. It's the fact that so many others don't get the chance to reveal they're a police chief, or a doctor, or a teacher. They're treated as threats simply for existing in their skin. We can't keep living like that. The neighbor, humbled and ashamed, eventually came to Mariah's door to apologize. And though the apology was awkward, Mariah accepted it, not because she forgot what happened, but because she believed in showing people the possibility of growth. By the end of it all, Mariah's story wasn't just about one unfair afternoon. It became a lesson in dignity. A reminder that strength isn't always about shouting louder or striking back, it's about standing firm, speaking truth, and turning a painful moment into a chance for change. And for everyone watching or listening, the message is clear: prejudice thrives in silence, but respect begins with seeing your neighbor as a human being. Don't wait for a uniform or a title to prove someone's worth. Knock on the door. Say hello. Choose humanity first, because one day, the person you underestimate may just be the very leader fighting to protect you.